Hello, you're listening to Overwhelm is Optional.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Overwhelm is Optional podcast. I'm really excited. I'm always so excited. But anyway, I'm extra excited that we have Dan Warburton with us. Dan's a transformational coach who is known, very well known, for enabling successful entrepreneurs who've hit a plateau to break through, become inspired and take actions that create results they never imagined were possible. Sometimes after only one coaching session. So I'm actually thinking I want one of those coaching sessions, because I do coaching sessions that are kick-ass on a Monday morning to get you out of your head and taking action. But sometimes it'd be nice for me to have a kick-ass coaching session. So I might put one of those in with you. He's also the author of a best-selling book, Dream It, Choose It, Live It. I love that. And I'd like to know more about that. We met because we kind of met, or we've connected after the event. We were both speakers at Forrester, the amazing Kelly Forrester's Purpose, Power and Prosperity event, November 2020. So welcome, Dan. It's so nice to have you here from rainy Spain.
Yeah, it's really good to be here from rainy Spain.
Right, I am going to start off with my question I always start with, which is, tell me about your adventures in overwhelm.
Oh my goodness, there's a question. I mean, my days of overwhelm started when I was very young, as a child, like never feeling like I was loved, fitted in, wanted, and then it went into school and I ended up being bullied really badly, to the point that I was scared to go into school each day. And then after that, I then started, the world of money and having to bring in my own money. So I started off in jobs and I worked night shifts in restaurants, washing dishes. I cut grass for the council in the freezing cold wind on the side of motorways. I've worked, on building sites, sweeping acres and acres of car parks and sand. You name the job, I've done it. And no matter what I did or however hard I worked, I could never seem to succeed at anything or get a kind of, feeling of satisfaction from life in general. So then I started trying to launch different business ideas, such as being a massage therapist or, teaching people, anything from like how to speak Italian, because I could speak Italian, to, Photoshop work, editing. And every business idea I had just never really earned me much or never felt very fulfilling. And you could say, well, I just gave up early, and if I'd have carried on, I might have succeeded. But deep within me, there was this choice I'd made in my life to just not earn money unless I enjoyed doing what it is that I'm doing. And you could say I've shot myself in the foot by doing that. By now I could easily be a multi-billionaire if I didn't have that outlook. But I absolutely refuse to do anything unless I enjoy it. And so I think over time I've learned to enjoy things that before I didn't enjoy. So now I just have enjoyment in work in general. But overall, I've now created, an extraordinary lifestyle where I get to wake every day and do what I enjoy. But my struggle has been absolutely lifelong. And it took some real fundamental insights and shifts for me to break out of that overwhelm.
I'm smiling because of the whole refusing to do what you don't enjoy. I've done a lot of jobs as well. And I remember every job I've done, like when I was a waitress or whatever I've done it with enjoyment and being the best waitress I could be. And then it's like, no, I'm not enjoying this anymore. So I've quit and then picked the next job up and done it to the best until I've stopped enjoying it. And I've done that with so many jobs. And yeah, I'm just laughing at that resonance as soon as you said that. Yeah. But tell us more about these shifts.
Well, it got to a point, like 10 years ago now. So I'm 43 now, and I was about 33 then. And I was at a phase where I'd grown this business with a team of handymen to a team of 8 of us. And we were doing all these handyman works, and I was running around like a maniac, handling as many as 300 phone calls a day.
Oh my God.
Not just from new jobs coming in, but from workmen needing details about the job that they're about to do. Can you imagine 8 different workmen on 8 different sites? It's like which wall, which pipe, which electrical wire to which light to what where, and I would document all of this and write it all out in details. But of course, just communication of simple things like that can often get lost. And so I was just at a point where I was burnt out, exhausted, and my workmen were making mistakes, and I'd end up paying them more money than was actually quoted in the job to the client. So in the end, I was breaking even and starting to lose money. I had tax bills that were coming in that I couldn't afford to pay. And I knew I was headed for another train wreck, another failed business, because it's like it was all there, and there I was again. And I went up to London on this last little bit of money that I had, and I was in the break between the classes, the leadership classes, and I said to my coach, and I said, why do I keep failing? Like, why do I keep struggling? Why does nothing seem to go to plan for me? And he started to ask me questions, and as he asked me questions, I started to have memories of something that happened to me when I was 3 years old. And I said to him, look, I'm remembering this thing that happened to me when I was 3 years old. He said, good, stay with it. So he kept asking me questions, and I basically relived this moment, had a memory of when I was 3 years old and my brother was 1. We're in a double push pram. My mum comes out the shop to give us what she bought on this lovely sunny day. And I put my hands up so she could give me what she bought, but she didn't give me anything. She just gave something to my brother. And I couldn't believe it. This thing, my brother, had taken all the love and attention away from me. So to get my revenge, I leant over and I bit his ear. And he screamed out, crying and crying. And my father saw this, and he runs over and he says, no, you mustn't do that. He's your brother. You must love your brother. And, he was quite stern and direct with me. And at that point, I got embarrassed that my dad was kind of speaking to me like this, and other people were watching this happen. And in that moment, what I got was that I was thinking, I'm just not good enough. Nobody wants me. That's how the world really seemed to me in that moment, that I'm just not good enough. Nobody wants me. Now, what I then realized very quickly was that was how the world seemed to me fundamentally, that I'm just not good enough and nobody wants me, which meant that I'd have to try very, very, very hard just to get a little bit of money in the bank.
Yeah.
And that I had to make sure everything was done like really well, but not because of integrity, because of fear of being judged and what people thought of me. And, this way of viewing myself in the world, it caused me to not have the confidence to get up on stage and introduce myself. I couldn't ask people out on a date. I worried about how I looked. I worried about what people thought. And so that way of thinking and viewing myself in the world tinted everything that I did. Everything. And what I saw was that it would keep me at a certain band of success. So I wouldn't go further down than a certain level, like becoming homeless and not taking care of myself, because everybody would then find out that I'm really not good enough and I'm not wanted. But I'd also would never seem to properly succeed, that whenever I had a break in business, it wouldn't last. And things would slowly fade and slide and fall apart again. Why? Because the fear of maintaining a level of success and it all crashing down in front of others secretly frightened me so much that people might then actually discover that I'm just not good enough and nobody wants me. And so in that conversation, I realized that I invented that and that it's not true and I don't need to be that anymore. And it was a total awakening. It was like having lived in nighttime my whole life and then somebody switches on a light bulb. The universe was that different to me from that insight onwards. Now, the effects of the transformation rippled through me over the next 7 days in conversation with others, and when I really deepened it and then grounded in it. But after that, I started to take actions that was based on the future that I wanted to create rather than surviving the way the world seemed. And like right now, one of the topics that we were chatting about on Facebook was the news and what kind of effect does the news have on your sense of feeling overwhelmed and like, oh my God, it's all too much and I can't succeed and I'm stuck at home and all of this. It's absolutely fundamental because bad news triggers the survival mechanisms in us. And so all our stuff, and we've all got this, I'm not good enough, I don't fit in, I'm not this, I'm not that, whatever our version is, it's different for everybody, but we all have some version of it. It gets triggered constantly by bad news, by, people that don't believe in us, by people that tell us to be realistic, play small, play safe, and all of this. And so for me, the turning point was becoming aware of that mechanism in me and how it was dominating me. And then I went through a couple more deeper transformations over the following year in sort of working with coaches and mentors. And by the time I'd completed the third one, my life had changed so much. I'd gone from being the owner of a struggling business to somebody who was running a business that was able to travel all over the world, that was closing sales for sort of emergency plumbing services, but I did it all with a phone after I placed these adverts. And as long as I answered the phone, I could be anywhere. And I went to Scotland. I went to 7 long weekend festivals. I partied more than I've ever partied in my life in that year. I ended up going snowboarding in the Alps and exotic resorts. Then I'd be on these chairlifts, like just these incredible mountain views, totally free, money's handled. And the phone would ring and I'd just go, hello, 247, how can I help you? And I would answer the phone. So, yeah, we can be there in an hour. Yeah, no problems, £150. Okay, what's your address? Great. And I would text details to my business partner who ran the business. I just white labeled his business with my own business. And he then carried out all the work. And then at the end of the month, he just sent me a load of money and then told me how much I had to invoice him for. So he had the paperwork to back it up. And
that is outrageously, ridiculously cool.
Yeah. And so... And like I've now coached over 1,000 entrepreneurs, and I still come against it again and again and again. And I see it online and I see it everywhere. I need to learn how to make money. I need to learn the latest strategy. I need to learn the trick that's going to make all the difference. I need to learn this, and people are constantly looking for knowledge, but it's not the knowledge that had me succeed. What had me be able to succeed was the unlearning of the knowledge that caused me to not take action on what I already knew.
Yeah.
We all know, if you make 100 calls a day, every single day for 30 days, you will astound yourself at what you'll learn, the opportunities you'll create, the proposals that people will say yes to, and what your life will start to look like. But nobody does it. Why does nobody make consistent sales calls? Well, because of the stuff that's in their way, this way of thinking, this way of viewing themselves in the world. And so my life now is committed to enabling other people to transform and break free of these subconscious ways of viewing themselves in the world, so they can take those actions and create those results they never imagined possible.
Wow. It's like, yeah, I thought I kicked people nicely, but I love that. When we need this gentle kick.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that because it's so succinct. It's like, I don't know. It's reminding me of myself when I'm getting frustrated, because sometimes I think I'm too nice when I go, look, overwhelm is optional. And this is how I can help you. I've started to get to the stage where, look, overwhelm is inevitable because this is how your human mind is. But actually you have a duty to live. You have a duty to be happy. Stop wasting your time. We need you. We need everybody in the world to get out of overwhelm, wake up, connect to their gifts and share those gifts with love and live their life fully. So it just made me laugh the way you did that so succinctly into like, people need to need to deal with their stuff and let go of stuff because it matters, actually. Doesn't it? It matters.
And what you're saying about overwhelm is like, why am I overwhelmed? Well, let's have a look at that. I'm overwhelmed because I can't handle all the demands my business has on me. Okay, very good. And why can't you handle all the demands? Well, I can't handle the demands because I'm not capable, and I can't do it alone, and I'm not good enough, and nobody taught me this stuff, and I can't do this, and I'm not. Yeah. And there you go. So there's only the experience of overwhelm when we're standing in an opinion of ourselves that conflicts with what we need to accomplish in the face of that overwhelm.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's the attention or the view you've got of the world from where you're standing, isn't it? Because actually,
yes, that's it.
So my thing is, overwhelm is both inevitable because your human mind's evolved to keep you safe. So it's going to keep telling you everything that's wrong. It's going to keep triggering your high alert system because it's evolved to save your life, but to make you miserable. So overwhelm's inevitable, but it's also optional. It's that I'm back with my oxymorons, which I love. Because
the way I would put it is, overwhelm is inevitable. The feeling and sensation of overwhelm is inevitable, but the being dominated by it is a choice.
Exactly. Yeah. But it takes skills.
With my clients,
new skills.
Yeah, it takes a whole total new level of awareness to be aware of the overwhelm and to disconnect it from reality, to see it's not connected to reality. It's just based on a subconscious interpretation.
But I would argue, actually, we could push it a little bit further. So we can challenge people to say, look, overwhelm needs to be dealt with. But I would also argue, and I want to kind of connect this back to our news conversation, there is something comfortable about being overwhelmed because you are disconnected, because you're so stuck. It's miserable, but you know it. You know where you are with it because everybody's overwhelmed, everybody's busy, everybody's doing stuff just to get by. So it's coming out of overwhelm, and the work you're talking about, actually, although you said it really succinctly and magically, it's deep work. It's not, although we can have fast breakthroughs, facing who we are, moving from here where we're overwhelmed and we can't see what's going on, to over here where we step out of the overwhelm, where we choose to engage with life, where we choose to change our perspective, look at ourselves and go, that's who I am. That takes courage. It takes new skills. It does take courage. It takes commitment. It takes courage. So I'm like, I dare you to tackle the overwhelm and stop wasting your life. I'm sympathetic. I'm empathetic. I have stuff that can help you. But if you're not prepared to do the work, I can't help you. And if you want to stay in overwhelm, then I'm not for you. Yeah. So it's that kind of like, and also I was thinking about what you were saying, going back to the news. So we know that research shows how bad it is to constantly absorb bad news. But if you think about this for a moment, and people have this kind of moral thing of, because when I announced I was going to stop engaging with the news, and I wasn't a big engager with the news anyway, but once I'd read the research on it, I made a very conscious decision and I announced it. I will no longer be engaging with the news at all. I got some quite moral kind of condemnation about, well, you have a duty to be informed. And what I find really interesting about that is the first time I found it hard to watch the news was when my eldest son was born. And I looked at this baby and I looked at the news, and it just didn't make any sense. How could I bring a child into this world if that was the world? If the news is the world, which it isn't, then it was too painful. So I shut the news out because I couldn't emotionally cope with it. And then obviously I re-engaged as he got older. But if you think about it, if there's some terrible news, which there's always terrible news, but how do you cope with that? So as a human, when you see the news, which is always traumatic, you can either engage with it and feel terrible. So your system goes into overwhelm, it goes into high alert, you get stuck in the stress response because you're powerless to do anything about it, or you become numb and you shut it out and you disconnect, which means you're disconnecting from other humans and their suffering. Either way, it's not like
either way it's survival
and we can act on it because we cannot solve all the problems. So it's not that I don't want to be informed, it's that I need to be informed in a way that is helpful, that is helpful for myself.
Constructive, well said.
And helps the world. And it doesn't help me if I disconnect emotionally and become numb. But I also think that because we learn to disconnect and become numb, I think that the news cycle can become this addiction because your nervous system's doing this, and also the numbness that it creates in the end, and the paralyzing, because we cannot act, we can't solve all of these problems we're looking at. I think that numbness and paralysis is like a giant overwhelm. It's like I'm
great insight.
But I'm stuck, and it stops us really engaging and taking action in the world. So actually, I was kind of getting this image of I've been rewatching Lord of the Rings because of the
wonderful.
The hero's journey, and I've been thinking about how, as entrepreneurs who are, digging deep into our own stories, it's like I was getting into the whole Frodo thing. I've lost it somewhere because he doesn't recover, whereas us who have been through burnout, we recover and then we help people not have to go to Mordor, if you see what I mean. I've not quite known where I'm going with this yet, but I was getting this, what's the giant spider called? The really scary Sheila.
I was just thinking of that. Yeah, when he got stung and wrapped up.
Yeah, and that's what the news is often like to me. You know, it paralyzes you, it numbs you, so then you can disconnect.
Yeah, from my sort of working with people, what I've noticed with the news and this thing of becoming addicted to the news, it's because it's like when people are standing in some disempowering view of themselves of the world, they think that what they have already is all they can ever get.
Yes.
The love I have now is all that I can get. The money that I have now is all I can get. And so it's this thing of, okay, well, at least if I'm in pain and suffering, I'll always have what I've got now, which is a roof over my head, a plate of food, you know, a lovely partner or wife or whatever, and my friends. And then that then becomes a ceiling on their universe. And so they then fight to maintain that.
Yeah.
Out of a fear that if they try playing for bigger or better, that they need to give up the things they've already achieved in their lives, which isn't the case at all.
But that's a human mind. That's what the human mind does, doesn't it? The human mind is incredibly resistant to change because change is risky, even good change. So we'd rather stay in what you say, that box where we're just about getting through, than dare to dream. And I find this really interesting in my work is that whenever, or quite often, if I suggest that daring to dream, you know, particularly at this time of year when that we use the turning of the year to review and dare to dream in a new year, that can create huge resistance because the fear comes up, and then they notice pain in the body to do with it. And it's really interesting because when I'm going, I dare you to dream, I think that would be fun because I'm coming from that place where for me, it is fun. But I've realized that real resistance can actually cause some real deep work. It's like, so why am I so fearful? Why does that cause overwhelm? And I think it causes overwhelm because the overwhelm is a safety mechanism which shuts it down, keeps you safe. You've got the roof over your head. Your partner's quite nice to you. You've got food in your belly. Don't aim any higher. Keep working hard, then get your pension. You know, that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's exactly what I found in my research, my work. And of course, it's like, if I'm working this hard and I'm putting this much effort in and I'm only achieving this much, how can I possibly imagine that I could ever achieve anything more? So let's have a look at that. So why do you think that you're only achieving as much as you are now? Well, because I'm not whatever comes up. And then there's this experience. Well, if I'm not this and I'm not that, like, you know, the classic, most common one is I'm not good enough. It's like, if I'm not good enough, how can I possibly become a multimillionaire, have the life of my dreams and have all this? So there's no point dreaming. It's a total waste of time. You know, you've got your head in the clouds. You need to be realistic, get with the program. This is reality, and just be satisfied with your lot. And that's it. And that's how the masses think.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what do I get? What do you want, Heidi? The moon on a stick? Get out of the clouds. And I would always argue I have my head in the clouds and my feet on the ground, and yes, I want the moon on a stick, and I will stand by that. And I think what you said, though, you know, to not sound like a pair of guys that, you know, are here on a podcast smoking weed and having a chat, you know, you've got to be grounded about it. You need to be realistic, like dream big and then take action every day towards actually fulfilling it. You know, it's those things, isn't it? You hear of conversations you have, and I've had, and, you know, I'm sure many people have had, so I'm going to do this tomorrow, I'm going to do that after you've had a few beers, and then you don't do anything and nothing happens. You know, that's being unhealthily unrealistic. That's just like, that's not what we're talking about, is it? What we're saying is, we're kind of saying the opposite. So I find it really interesting what you're saying about when people get stuck in, I'm working really hard and I'm only making this much money, or I'm just about getting through. Because I work with people who are really stuck in that just about getting through, and they feel like they're going to break. And it then feels like if you say, well, you can have this, they're like, well, I can't because I'm already using all of my energy. There's a limit to it. So the fear there is, if I dare to dream this, I'm going to end up back in that burnout cycle. And anybody who has burnt out knows how deeply painful it is, how much shame and grief and loss, and how long it takes to regain your health and your confidence. So if you say, dare to dream, they're going to go, no, because I'm going to have to do this, this, and this. But actually, we're not talking about that. What we're talking about is not doing the busy stuff. The busy stuff that is a response to the overwhelm are just, like whack-a-mole. I'll get this done, this done, this done, this done, this done, this done. Herding kittens. It's the no, pause, connect. What's your purpose? If you could, the purpose to me of the dreaming is that you can really connect to the heart and what it longs for, because that's where your energy is. And once you get that energy, you disconnect from the burnout, because the burnout's caused by disconnecting from your heart in the first place. You're doing the things that don't energize you. You're doing the things that drain you. You've got boundaries that are not working for you. They're not set. It's about burnout, I think, and that whole overwhelm, that stuck in that cycle is from that lack of self-worth. This is all I deserve, which is what you're saying. So we're actually talking about dreaming so that you can then take really grounded action. Use your energy wisely. Use your time, your attention wisely. Don't waste it getting through. Because that's where it is. You're disconnected from your own power, aren't you? But I think there's two problems with our conversation. One is it does sound like, oh, you're saying dream and it's got to be action. But the other one is this whole, and I've lost it. I hate it when this happens. No, it's gone. Forget it. Move on.
but what you were saying there, dream and action, without action, the dream will just remain as that, a dream.
Oh, what was I going to say? I hate it when this happens. Oh, it's so annoying when this happens. I was going to say something inspiring and brilliant. Obviously, it's gone. It doesn't matter.
It will come back to you.
It will. I always think that if something's important, it comes back and you don't need to cling to it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, nice. But, just fundamentally, I've really now, from having coached over 1,000 entrepreneurs, totally discovered that it's only when we stand in a subconscious opinion of ourselves, that we have an experience of things not going to plan, overwhelm, feeling lack, frustration, and all these things. And that once we transform that and we free ourselves of what that opinion is, like, as I said earlier, if we're in a race and the gun gets fired and everybody runs in the race and everybody runs faster than you, everyone is faster, therefore I am slow. Yeah. So we go through life thinking, everyone is faster than me, but it's not. It's the subconscious view of I'm slow that gives us the experience of I'm slow. And so that's the experience that we have of the world and life, of all the problems and challenges that we have, are all because we're standing in some unfounded, totally destructive subconscious view of ourselves and the world.
And that's what I've remembered now, is that it's what's missing is that I think we need to be clear about how much courage this work takes to turn that around, to move from where you're standing, seeing everybody else go fast, to dare to pause for a moment, turn it around and say, actually, maybe I'm going exactly the right speed for me. So much courage.
The turning point that somebody will have is, first they have the courage to want to do the work to break through their challenge, and that's a choice. And then that choice is only an active choice when it's acted upon, when you pick up the phone and you book a call to you or me or to whatever specialist or a friend or somebody you can talk to. And then the breakthrough comes when you realize that your way of being, that your way of doing things isn't causing you to survive, it's actually doing the opposite.
Yes.
When that part of your brain realizes that what you're doing is actually causing more misery and more unhappiness than you actually want in your life, and it's been doing that, then that survival mechanism goes, oh God, I'll stop doing that.
You are so right.
And it awakens out of it. But absolutely. To get to that, somebody needs to realize, okay, so you keep doing this, and what's the impact of that? Well, I stay at home and do nothing. Okay, and what's the impact of that? Well, I'm not making sales calls. Okay, and what's the impact of that? Well, I'm not making sales. Okay, and what's the impact of that? I'm not making money. Okay, very good. And what's the impact of that? I stay stuck in my village where I am now. I don't get to do what I love. I don't get to travel the world. I don't get to take my partner and do anything new with them. And I just stay stuck. And I say, okay, so what's your life going to look like in the next 10 years if you continue doing that? Oh my God, I don't want to think about that. Yeah. They say, Yeah. And only then have they become aware of the impact of their habits and what they've been doing?
Yeah.
And at that point say, okay, so, who invented that way of being? I did. Is it true? No. Do you need to be that way any longer? No. Very good. Okay. So what do you get from saying that out loud? And usually there's a long pause of silence and like, oh my God, wow. Or, oh yeah, what have I been doing? I don't need to do that. And that's the wonderful transformation, breakthrough point. But it only happens when somebody really gets the impact of what they've been doing and how badly it's affecting them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're right. It's when you realize that actually you're not getting through. You thought you were getting through.
Yeah. And
you thought you're not getting through.
And you thought that you just had to work harder and do more of what you've been doing. Yeah. It's not going to work. No,
it's not going to work. You're not getting through at all. It's all rubbish. And it's when it becomes that obvious that you go, so I can. And also when you say, I love it when people go, so I can stop doing that. Because we always think we have to do more.
Because, but also when I can stop doing that, it's the taking responsibility, the ownership over the being.
Yeah. Until then, permission for that. A lot of it's permission.
Well, which in other language is before I thought it was the world that's happening to me. And now I realize it's me that's being into the world.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
It's almost like, I remember some of my breakthroughs from brilliant conversations where it's like, the moon just became a cuboid. It's such a, you could have told me the sun was purple instead of, it's such a big transformation. It's
so
such
huge.
A sudden, different way of looking at it. It's like, but I thought the moon was this shape and it just changed shape. And how could I ever have seen it as that shape? It's so bonkers and it seems so obvious.
And to put it into context, it might be somebody thinking, I thought I had to just keep working harder.
Yes.
And I was going to succeed. Yes. Or I thought I just needed to learn this one skill. Or, like somebody came to me and they're struggling in their business and they thought they had to sort out their client acquiring systems and their like training program delivery systems for LinkedIn. But actually it wasn't that. What was missing was she just wasn't making clear requests of her colleagues to take on designing and creating and ironing out these problems. And being left to it without them pushing the problem back onto her. And as soon as she did that and got into their world and held their, and understood their challenges with what they had to take on and supported them in doing that, all of a sudden her business then ironed out. And she's now got so much more freedom and ease. And it's literally added zeros to her business this year. And that breakthrough was just 6 months ago. Incredible, right? We often think that the problem in front of us is what needs solving, but it's not.
That's why coaching can be so powerful. If you get the right coach at the right time, it is just ridiculously powerful because you get those breakthroughs and you can just let go of so much junk because you're getting in your own way.
My life would not look the way it does now if it wasn't for the coaching that I've invested in and received. I've got 3 coaches I'm working with at the moment.
Wow.
Yeah, 50% or more of my business revenue goes on coaching and mentoring.
Wow.
Because of the quality of life. I mean, it's enabled me now to travel the world, speak on stages to audiences of over 1,000. I've coached over 1,000 clients. I got a book, became an Amazon bestseller that's now recommended by Robin Sharma. And I wake every day with absolute inspiration. I'd never look to see what time it is because I'm bored or want to do something else. I'm just absolutely living this unbelievably deep, fulfilling lifestyle. And in the middle of this so-called endemic, when apparently there's a lockdown going around me. And the only reason why I've got there is because I haven't done it on my own. I've constantly reached out and I've asked people for help. I've found people that were more successful than me. And I asked them could you give me some time on a call? I'd love your advice. I'd love your help. I'm struggling. And many people have responded with amazing conversations. And then I found money, borrowed money, raised money, did whatever I had to invest to work with these specialists and people. And that's the only reason why my quality of life is so good as it is now.
I love that. Right, tell us more about what you do, where people can find out about how to work with you.
So I specialize in enabling entrepreneurs to break through like a time of plateau where they feel lost or feel like they've lost a sense of purpose or they feel overwhelmed in their businesses, to then break through and be able to realize their greatest visions. That's what I do in a tin. And they can find out more about that at danwarburton.com. So if you go there, you can schedule a call with me and I'd happily give you a transformational experience, enable you to break through. And then if it works and you see how great it is, which I'm confident you will if you're in the right time and place, then we may end up working together. But who knows? That's secondary. First of all, I just love to connect and give these experiences away.
Oh, I love that. So have you got like a top tip for overwhelm?
The top tip for overwhelm is, first, don't try not feeling overwhelmed. Allow yourself to feel overwhelmed and just get it. Okay, you're overwhelmed. Acknowledge it. It's all getting a bit too much for you. Got it. And get clear. Why did you wake up today? What's the dream? What are you up to in the world? And then ask yourself, what is the next most important things that you need to solve to get back on track? And write down everything that's on your mind there and then. Every single problem, just write it down. Stop everything. And I guarantee the minute you write them all down, you'll realize there isn't that much in your head that needs to do. The thing you need to work on next will become extremely clear. And then allow yourself to take the first action and move through that action and realize that the overwhelm, you might always feel it. It might never go away, but that it just doesn't need to dominate or run you any longer. And over time, what happens is that overwhelm, it will diminish because you'll become its master. It will no longer have grip over you.
Oh, I like this. I like this mastering of overwhelm.
and that's experience for me. I've been totally overwhelmed to the point I've had nervous breakdowns. I've totally been there. And now I'm playing bigger than I've ever played before. And I'm able to be with intense overwhelm like I am today. Like I'm leading a webinar this afternoon for a group of entrepreneurs. That's 87,000 members.
Oh
87,000. Yeah. And I don't know how many from that group have registered, but it's going to be a lot. And I'm supposed to deliver this 2-hour deep transformational session and have them gain real value, you know? And am I feeling confronted? Hell yes. But I know to just breathe, and I know why I wake up today, and I know what I'm creating, and that's all that matters. And I'll just take action, and whatever happens will happen, and that's it.
that is really, I just love that whole, that's really inspiring. Thank you so much for today's interview. It's been really, really lovely. I love your energy. I love how you work in the world, and thank you for sharing your story and your inspirational ways of looking at things. Thank you so much, Dan. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. No, you've got a great energy, and I'm looking forward to seeing your success in the future.